Hello crafty friends, Amanda here with Crafting with Amanda and the Makers with Heart Mystery Envelope Challenge. This time Julie sent us our pieces and they're from the Four Seasons collection, and basically all that she said is she wanted us to create something that captures a Christmas tradition or a Christmas memory, and that she would like all patterns incorporated into our final project. So all 6 pieces of paper need to be on here. I was going through the current idea book and I saw that layout with the cherish papers and I thought, oh, this is perfect, I can do this. As it turns out, it's much harder than I thought because I'm not doing just the 2-inch squares that the sample has. I went and cut all of my papers down, and Julie sent us, I believe, 5.5 by 4-inch pieces, and so it's ends up being 2 by 2 3/4 pieces, and so it made it interesting. And it's funny, I play with these pieces and how to combine them, kind of like you would for quilt squares, over and over and over again. And I show you lots of it because sometimes I think when we move things around on a page, it can inspire somebody else to think, oh, I want to do that. I have a sunset picture that would look great with, those kind of things. So I show you some of it, but I spent, a ridiculous amount of time changing the patterns on this and trying to figure out what goes with what, and because they're two-sided, which I wanted to incorporate and which ones I didn't. And so here I'm trying to use the grid as a pattern. So they're 2 inches wide when you make them back into the squares, but I'm not feeling the quilting, kind of the balance that you get in quilts. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll try it here as a pinwheel. And this is good. And like I said, I keep some of these things on here so that maybe it'll be an inspiration for somebody else. And I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of a pinwheel up in the corner. I know that I have my photos that I've printed is our Christmas tree, my little Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse animated figures, and then we play games. Our family is big into board games. We always have been. When we were in Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula, every month we would do game night, and then every Sunday we actually alternated with real good friends of they would come to our house, do dinner and games, or we would go to their house for dinner and games. So games have always been something important to our family, but especially on the holidays. It just doesn't feel like it's a holiday if we haven't played some sort of game. But it doesn't have to be a board game or a card game or dominoes. Video games count, and oftentimes a new video game has been purchased for somebody in the family, and so they get to play that. I know a couple of years ago I got a Paper Mario, I want to say Sticker Star, or it could be the desert one, for the 3DS, or maybe it was for the Switch, and I borrowed my husband's Switch, and so we were playing that. But so I went online and I printed some pictures of box games that we like, and I did also print out a 3DS, so you'll see that in there. Here's about the time, if you've been watching what I've been putting together on the screen, this is about the time that I bring in this scarlet cardstock that I finally figure out, all right, I need to have more red in here. It brings out some of the red in the photos. I don't like the outlines that I had printed on the photos. I definitely want to trim those off, so I trimmed down all of the pieces closer and tighter, and then we're kind of proceeding from there. And like I said, this is where it kind of starts coming together for me. So now I'm trying to, again, if you go to page 24 of the seasonal idea book, you'll see the layout that's my inspiration, and I'm trying to figure out how, if I want to do the framing, because they've done I'm guessing it's mist cardstock with the dark side, and then they've run a ruler and the white gel pen to make the line around the center, which is probably the mink, and I'm going to guess the light side. And again, they framed all of their quilting pieces with the Seabrook. So there's just a lot going on, and I'm trying to figure it all out. So here, now that I've added the red triangles to my paper selections, I came up with this. And it's like, okay, so now I'm going to ink all the edges and using my T ruler to make sure that they're straight and that the corners match up and everything. And you can see there's a couple times that you kind of have to wiggle them off and get that margin between the squares correct. So I did spend a little bit of time doing that, but for me, the end product is better and I like that. So I've inked the edges, I've lined them up with the ruler. I'm going to trim this off just so that I have kind of the frame piece similar to what they did on theirs. But on page 24, the layout in here is a full square where obviously I'm doing a rectangle. And if I do this layout again, which I might, I think I might cut the pieces, instead of being 2 inches, I might make them 1 1/4, so they'll be 3.5 inch rectangles that I cut. Just so that it's not a full 12 inches tall, so that I can do the framing. So now I'm going to go ahead and play with my board games and my Christmas tree and just see how I want them on there. And then my little vignette with the Christmas tree with my Pooh and Mickey Mouse characters. Just like I said, it was one of those layouts that I tried this and I didn't like it. So then I would try something else and then I would get interrupted by life and then I would come back and look at it. So here I grabbed the old White Pines stamp set and I'm going to use the sentiment and then some of the banners. And off camera you can see here in the upper right corner, using the old Holly and Ivy digital collection, I cut all of these pieces from the Holly and Ivy scrapbook part on that digital collection, but I didn't use all of the images. I just used a few of the poinsettias and leaves and the berry branches, and I just cut those in the Mist and Seabrook and Scarlet cardstock. And here's my trick. For printing on vellum from the printer, I tack down the vellum to just a plain piece of printer paper, and then it just goes through the printer, and I print it on just a normal setting. I don't do photo quality or anything, because then the ink comes out a little damp. And as you saw there, I put on the clear embossing powder, and now I'm melting it over all of these letters, and then I will have my journaling on vellum, and it won't smear, it won't get damaged. It's kind of encapsulated now in the heat embossing. And I don't know if you can see how it went from kind of a grainy to a sharper black as that heat embossing works. So I'm going to peel that off of that printer paper, and I had a little bit of the ATG glue left on there, so I went ahead and just moved that off with my finger. So now I'm going to take all these components and again just try to find out where they work for me. And in the journaling I talk about what I had said earlier, that we like to play board games or games, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be a board game. It can be, you know, just all kind of sitting around in the same room and laughing, either playing a video game together or playing our individual video games together. But we're still in a room and we're sharing with each other, and that's just, it works for our family. So here I'm going to glue these 2 pieces of the mink cardstock together so that I get 2 layers when I cut my letters out. And my title is just going to be Tradition, which is what Julie asked us to do in our project. And then I am using some washi tape to hold those die cut letters together, and it just makes it easier to line them up and to get them to stay in line on your page. So here I'm just kind of auditioning it, and because it ends up right on top of one of those triangles, I don't end up needing my T-square ruler for that. And again, I don't know if I was indecisive or if there was just a lot going on in my world that day, but I end up dry fitting this often. I played with those triangles from the base card pieces that Julie sent us a lot. At the end, I really like this layout, so all the effort and time for me was worth it. I'm just excited to be getting more and more pages done and into our albums and things that my family can go back and look on and remember. I'm just taking these pieces and kind of dry fitting them on, trying kind of auditioning them, into different places to see what I like and what works. And this kind of works for me. And if that 3DS gets hidden, that's okay. It's kind of a background thing anyhow. It's there, but it doesn't have to be, it's not the cute baby photo that, everybody needs to look at. It kind of just gives a nod to kind of who we are as a family. And it's funny, I was missing some of these berries for the tops of the branches, and I had actually cut some extra, so I was confused as to why I didn't have them. Well, they ended up showing up. They had fallen off and were on my desk, and one of them was on my shirt, so just adding those to my glued berry branches. And these pine branches, I really like. The Cricut cut them out really nicely. They're sharp, they're crisp, and I think they're a nice texture kind of difference in these little vignettes of clusters. I find it funny, I'm watching, that I did glue down that vellum with this aqua glue, and you can see in the upper right corner where it's on the red, how it kind of shows through as dark red. But the others where it's kind of light on light, you really have to look for the glue to see it. So I will end up trying to camouflage that glue dot as I do some embellishing later. But for now, I'm just going to let you watch as this layout comes together. Once I got to the end, I really liked this. I had fun during the process. It was just, I was laughing at myself, and I was very aware of how much time I was spending in the studio trying to put this one-page layout together. So I don't know if you've ever done that. It wasn't a bad day. I wasn't frustrated or anything. It was just, apparently I was really enjoying crafting that day and not good at making decisions. Or I wasn't feeling the direction I was going in, and I was waiting until it struck me. I've been finding more and more lately that I need to have some inspiration to have a jumping off point. And in the past, I used to be so rigid in that if this was the layout that I was using as my inspiration or scrap lifting, I had to copy it just like this. I couldn't just let my photos or the papers that I had or the embellishments that I had, work with me to create a layout inspired by. I had to do it just like they did it. So I'm kind of proud of myself that I've let loose from that and just had fun with them, because some of my layouts have turned out better than I could have imagined that, even just a year ago they would have turned out. So it's kind of a memory, and the more you do, the better you get at it. So I encourage you, get out your stuff and your papers, and if it's your hobby is painting, get out your paints and just play. You're going to learn something, how much water to use, or if you keep moving your brush across the paper in a certain way, there's going to be some muscle memory there. And here I'm trying to hide that little corner that you can see the glue dot behind the vellum, and that poinsettia petal will hide it perfectly. So it's the perfect poinsettia petal. Oh, I can't think of a word to come up with hidden. But wouldn't that have been a great alliteration? And here I had tried putting the greenery on top of the photo, but I liked them tucked in behind. And this, I'm just using the one, I cut that out by hand, for Remember These Moments from that White Pine stamp set. Now these little, they look like mint candies, but they're in gray and white. They were a gift from a crop that I went to. There was 5 of us that got together, and we were invited to this one gal's home. So we would drive about 5.5 hours to her house, 4 of us. And so the 5 of us got together, and these little gray, they look like candies, were a gift that one of the gals gave to all of us. So it's kind of fun having that gift from Jan on my layout. Be sure to check out what all the other Makers with Heart did. Their channel links are in the video description below. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you next year with more challenges. Blessings.